Welcome to Stay Sparked. On this show, we explore how to stay inspired in the modern world through the most profound lessons from Burning Man, relationships, entrepreneurship, psychedelics, spirituality, travel, and more.
On today's episode, we talked about the ends of relationships.
We talk about the difference between uncoupling and breaking up.
And how do we navigate these end of relationships with compassion, grace, and applying the wisdom that we currently have?
Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to Stay Sparked. We are three longtime friends who have been inspiring each other and lighting each other up for the last decade or more, and we are here to share some of these conversations aimed to spread sparks into your lives. Thank you so much for listening. If you have been enjoying these conversations, we so appreciate you leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, so that way we can keep spreading the sparks. I'm Betsy.
I'm Halcyon.
And I am JANUS.
I am the founder and creator of the Power Affirmation Project, teaching life skills for sustainable happiness.
I am the host of the Hug Nation YouTube channel and Daily Gratitude Circles.
I am the founder of a nutritional supplement company called NuWorld Nutritionals, and going to be a dad soon. So that's exciting.
Definitely a big role and full-time job.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. No tapping out of that one.
So we always love starting with gratitude. So love to spark us off with some gratitude over here. In this moment, I am really grateful for classical music. I got to go to a really beautiful concert this weekend in La Jolla, and it was mostly strings and clarinet and piano, and it was so different than the weekend before. I went to like large bass Burning Man sound system experience, and then I got to experience this classical music show, and it was so peaceful and so beautiful, and I felt so calm and serene afterwards. So my gratitude's for classical music.
Nice.
Thanks. That sounds fun.
My gratitude is for a phrase that my partner and I have been using with each other, which is, you got the part. Meaning like you already got the job, you just relax. I had a period of a few days of kind of being in a funk and getting a little down on myself. And I have a tendency to spiral into judgment and then go to a place of unworthiness, and just the phrase, you got the part, let me be vulnerable and feel like it was okay to be in that place, which then made it easier for me to receive support from her. So grateful that I got the part.
Nice. That's fun. All right, good deal. So my gratitude today, also partner related, is that yes, as mentioned, got a baby on the way, and my partner has been on it as far as like scheduling all the stuff and knowing what needs to happen and who we got to talk to and what needs to be scheduled, what classes we got to take, so on and so forth. She is like on top of all of it, and it's allowing me to kind of keep my bandwidth free for the stuff that it needs to be free for. So I mean, I could definitely be on it a little more, but the fact that she is handling it is just kind of like, all right, good. It definitely provides a small bit of relaxation in my world. So I'm definitely gratitude for that.
Nice.
These days.
Oh, that's awesome. Big shout out to Shakti Shannon, your lady love.
That's right. Yeah. Shout outs to her.
Amazing. Well, I love that you guys both used your partners for your gratitude today, because the spark of our conversation is kind of in that realm. And so we all know that love, romance, dating, being in partnership, marriage, divorce is a huge part of our world. And you weren't always with these partners. You were with other people beforehand that led you to where you are now. We've all been through a journey. And so we wanted to share some conversations around transitions in relationships, and in particular, moving from being together to not together. So uncoupling versus breaking up, the processes that we've been in, the things that we've learned, also potentially transitioning from friends to lovers or lovers to friends. So love to start with an inquiry with whoever wants to share first on your journey of getting to be here where you are and love now. How do you feel about the process of uncoupling or breaking up?
I'm gonna jump in with a quick inquiry because it's like, how do we feel about uncoupling or breaking up? Betsy, what's
Uh-huh.
the difference?
Oh, well, that's a really, really great clarification point. So, my perspective, uncoupling versus breaking up, is there's a grace that comes with uncoupling. It sounds
Mm,
even just sounds gentler, right? If you see two beings and it's just like, let's just gently unwind them. There's this like grace that comes with it. Breaking up is hard and it's abrupt and it's intense. And there's I think the biggest difference when it's amicable versus not so amicable.
okay, that's a quality definition. Thank you. I just wanted to, if in case anybody was initially having that same curiosity after hearing,
Mhm.
this or that. So I just thought that was valid. So now, Halcyon, I cede the floor to you.
Well, I'm lucky in that every single ending of relationship I've ever had has been harmonious and never any disagreements or fighting whatsoever.
Mm.
Wait. No. Okay, sorry.
Wow.
That's not exactly
Oh,
true.
look at
That's not exactly
you.
true. No,
I'm looking for my buzzer.
Clearly,
um,
if anyone follows you on
no,
Facebook and watches all your daily lives, I think they know it's not true.
no. But I do feel that I am now in a loving, harmonious relationship with all of my former partners, which is something that I
Mm.
didn't used to be able to say. And I actually used to have an identity. I felt that I was someone who did not get along with my exes. And so I had a history of breaking up. And it was not something I was proud of. It was something I felt like it was a deficit. And so as I have grown, I feel like the the relationship transitions have become more healthy, which has facilitated the ability to be in continued relationship with those people. Yeah, but that being said, that this is something I'm certainly in a learning phase, and some of my the people that I'm closest to now, the transitions were rough. They were not harmonious transitions.
Mhm.
Yeah. I wish I could say that. I wish I could say that that I'm in a harmonious relationship with all of former partners. I am not. I'm probably batting about 50-50, about 500 on that. So, and the ones that I am friends with, it's great. It's fine. It's casual. It's cool. Like, we see each other. We like each other's stuff on social media, and we do check in on on occasion, like, oh, you got married, that's awesome. So we're, so the ones I'm friends with are great. I will say that I don't want to, and I don't want to say it's all them. It's not me, as far as like the ones that were not harmonious. Um, but what I learned a long time ago, what I've seen kind of play out over the course of some of my former relationships, is when, and I've been on both ends of this as well, is that when somebody is bound and determined to cast you in a role for themselves, there is nothing you can do to shake that off. There's nothing you can do to not be that person for them, other than to just check out of the engagement. And I had an opportunity to kind of reconnect with a former lover, just on a friendship level, because it wasn't like we just really went our separate ways, and that was kind of it. But I valued them as a person, as a love, even the unconditional love part of that. But then when checking into, because we happened to find ourselves vacationing in the same place at the same time, there was like a check-in to be like, hey, so what are you up to? And they were like, we need to clear some stuff up because da 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 da. It's like, oh, this again. Okay. And it was just me, just, okay, we're still there. That's fine. And honoring, there's something to be said for honoring what we evoke from people and acknowledging what we evoke from people. And so it's like, this person is awesome, but for whatever reason, when we get together or our energies start to mingle, it's rare. So be like, okay, it's not them, it's me. It's not me, it's them. It's a little bit of both. So,
Mhm.
so yeah. So yeah. Long story short, I wish I was a little bit better with that. What about you, Betsy?
Yeah. Dynamics are a thing. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have had a unique journey of uncoupling. When I was in high school, I had a high school sweetheart. We were together for about 2.5 years, and towards the end of our relationship, we were still very much in love. But I was a year older than him, and he was still in high school, and I was in college, and we made a conscious choice to separate our relationship, not based on a fight or because we didn't love each other, but because of this situation where it was like, a little long distance. And also it was just, we just weren't able to see each other. And so that was the first time I ever experienced this really beautiful unwinding of a relationship that was mutual. And then over a series of relationships, I've had been long-term relationships for a large part of my life. I've had some really incredible experiences of finding harmonious conversations with my beloveds to be able to part ways. It was not always easy, of course, because there's so much love and there is process. But I would say that it's been a huge part of my journey of love is learning how to use the language and communication and resources to be able to find the most harmonious unwinding. That being said, I also have had some pretty gnarly ones too. In college at one time, me and this guy, we were dating for a while, and we just got so mad at each other that we started doing mean things to each other. Like silly things, like kind of like, he would come over and like pour snow on the front of my door so I couldn't open the door, and I would like, throw eggs at his house or whatever, these like silly things, and we were just little kids.
Mhm.
Now we message each other and we say hi to each other and we laugh about it. But that was definitely a breakup. We're like, "Rawr.
Mm.
No, I'm going to do something mean to you. No, I'm going to do something mean to you. No, I don't like you anymore." And so it was kind of fun and playful, but also like kind of ridiculous.
Mm.
I prefer the more loving kind, like, let's talk about this, let's move through this.
Mhm.
Um, the process, because I feel like we all have something for each other. When we enter into a relationship with somebody, because we have reflections for one another, we have something to share with each other to support our growth and our evolution. I feel like relationships are like the highest form of a spiritual practice, because they provide a mirror for us to grow and to learn and to evolve. And in the uncoupling is oftentimes where some of the biggest insights can come from.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, what is the shadow here? What do I need to look at with myself? What am I learning from this person? And what are the contracts that we had that are coming to a completion? So
Yeah,
those are some kind of considerations I like to be with.
yeah. I feel that to paraphrase that one quote, it's like, if you ever get to feeling like you've reached some sort of level of enlightenment, go spend a week with your family. Um, and I think that can also be applied to a relationship. Like go travel with your partner for a week,
Or go to Burning Man.
or go to Burning Man with them. Yes, exactly. Oh yeah, there's like levels to this for sure. So
It'll make or break you.
yeah, and I think it's important to, and I want to talk with you guys also about like the tools that we have acquired to assist us with the process of like kind of navigating a conscious uncoupling, as opposed to like just getting smashed on the rocks of a relationship. So I'm curious with Halcyon, like you said, you're on high quality terms with a lot of your exes, your former partners. What tools have you been able to apply to that to kind of help create that?
I mean, I think the most significant is time and wisdom and aging amongst all parties. If I look back,
Sure.
I don't think until very recently was I ever really interested in building a life with another person. I was interested in spending time with another person and having a romantic partner and having an adventure partner, but I was never interested in building a life. And for a long time, I thought that that was evidence of my strength and evidence of my spiritual evolution, that I was a lone wolf. I didn't need anyone. I just, was able to spend time with someone. And I felt like I communicated that with words to my partners, and then I would sometimes even resent them for wanting more. And so that was often a sticking point, in what ended a relationship, is when my partner would be like, are we building something? And I would be very clear, we are not. We are choosing each day to be together. And I thought that was a victory. That was like, hey, that's awesome. We're choosing each day to be together. And it took a lot of growth and seeing the suffering in my partners to recognize that's not a spiritual holy union. That is not how you build the kind of spiritual growth you're talking about in relationship. To me, what I witnessed is that there needs to be a foundation of safety and security, especially I think the feminine, not necessarily women, but the feminine in us really needs a sense of stability and security to feel safe and blossom. And I was so resistant to that. I felt like that was impinging upon me and my freedom. And so that was that became the reason for almost all of my ending relationships, because I wasn't ready. I didn't want that. And they got to a point where I eventually want to build something with somebody. And so I think what has made it to a point where we can now be friends and connecting is recognizing that we were not the person for each other. And so we can now go back and say, okay, within the things we did share together, there was lots of beautiful lessons. And now we are safe to find what we want in other people.
Wow, so beautiful. That was some wisdom, pink wisdom coming through. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's really huge. That claiming of freedom and needing to be able to like claim your independence, but also then recognize within yourself now that was sort of a resistance to building something, and how that's related to safety. Yeah, it's really powerful.
I got a huge awareness studying just the surface level of attachment theory, and realizing that what I considered to be evidence of my strength and healthy mental place was actually avoidant attachment. And as I started to look into it, these symptoms of deep trauma was manifesting in my independence. And the more I looked into that, it was like, oh my gosh, this is not an area where I can be so confident that I'm right, because now that I can see the studies and see it in other relationships and in books and reading, like this is a place of growth for me. And it was humbling in a beautiful way that allowed me to kind of move on from that.
And you really see something beautiful there around learning and going into the resources that are available, right? Maybe in the younger years that we've all had and being in relationships, we didn't study relationships. It's not taught to us in school. One of the primary things that we all aspire to experience in this life is to be in partnership, to be with somebody, but there's not a class. Right, but now here we are. We have so many resources. You mentioned a book called Attached, so we could put that in the show notes. Attachment theories, right? Is that the one?
It's one of the main ones.
Yeah. So to be able to have access to this kind of information, I feel like is a key component to be able to navigate the process, whether or not you're going to stay with somebody or shift out of it, to be able to recognize that our core values are in alignment, our attachment styles are harmonious or not. We're both growing in the same direction, our intentions are aligned, to be able to have those tools. And that's like the question that you posed, Janus, is like, what are the tools that we use to be able to move through this journey of being in love, in relationship, and out of relationship?
Yeah, and it comes to that awareness and knowledge of self, for sure. And to kind of speak to what Halcyon was talking about, I think a lot of us, and to really put a microscope on what Halcyon was referring to, is when it comes to a lot of men's approach, or let's say the masculine's approach to relationship, is that there is a fear of entanglement, because in my experience, that the idea of like kind of the growth of my own kind of just awareness and awakening about just all things, is that when it comes to relationship, this relationship is going to end at some point. It might end when we're both 100 years old. It might end tomorrow for various reasons. My partner might wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm done. Or I might wake up and do that. One of us gets hit by a bus, kidnapped by aliens, whatever. This relationship is going to end at some point. So when it ends, it's like, oh, okay, this is how it's ending. Okay. And, I'll feel sad about that. I will grieve, I will mourn, and I will get over it as humans do. So there's really, that kind of, for me, has taken the the anxiety out of like relationships. It's like, oh, okay, this was always going to end. This is all temporary. So kind of having that awareness kind of allows me to kind of breathe in a relationship. And as far as the entanglement goes, I think a lot of us as men, we look into this idea like, okay, we're going to build a life with this person. Otherwise, what are we doing? And there's a lot. I definitely have my own process with that, where it's like, okay, so what, we're going to like move in together, and we're going to have kids. We're going to get married. We're going to buy a house together. We're going to do all this stuff together. And a fence. Yeah, we're going to install the fence. And 9 years down the road, I'm going to wake up and be like, this is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. And be like, okay, what have I done? And there's, I think, a lot of men, they look ahead of that. They're like, I'm going to avoid that. How about we just enjoy the moment? How about we just enjoy like being together? And it's really, it's difficult to find somebody who's on that same page for the same reasons, and not coming from a fear-based perspective. I think a lot of, women, feminine, is kind of wired to be like, no, let's create a nest, let's do this. So otherwise, what are we doing after like a couple of years? And I think a lot of, they are, and they kind of short circuit things because they fear the future entanglement. And it's like, oh, so it's a lot easier to separate now than it is, after marriage, house, kids, this, that, and the other thing, because then now you're in there. And it's like, it's going to be a lot, there's a perceived lack of freedom, where we're losing something, as opposed to like what we're gaining. We don't see what we're gaining from that. We see losing from that. We don't want to lose that. So we don't even want to go too far down that route. I'm sure this is true for women as well, in some cases. But kind of for me, it always comes back to the awareness of self. And like, what am I looking to create in this life? What am I looking to do here? Is this person aligned with what I'm looking to with the sort of life I'm looking to live?
So beautiful. I relate to that so much, because alignment is everything. And I actually went through that, where it was that devotion to freedom and sovereignty, but also being in love and finding love and being with this person and navigating how to just stay in the moment as much as possible. And we did that for quite some time. And then we got to a point where we were like, wait, where are we going? We were like on this ship, and we're like cruising. We're going to check out this island over there and that island over there. And this is so beautiful. But then after a while, we're like, where do you want to steer this ship? And we both got to have some hard conversations around, do we want to keep building something together? Because you're inevitably building something. Like you said, you're resisting the building of a life together, but after a while, you just inevitably are building something. And so to have those check-ins, I feel like, is a really important part of the process. Another tool. There's a word for it in one of the relationship trainings, is radars, having radars. So whether it's weekly or monthly in partnership, to check in. How are we feeling, right? How are you feeling about our relationship? Is there anything that we need to clear? Do we need to tend to the garden of our relationship? Is there something that doesn't feel good for you, or something that really feels good? And I feel like having those check-ins can really support the process, because there might be something in there that can get cleared, and then it might keep coming up, keep coming up. And it's like, well, actually, this is really becoming a wedge between us. We need to address this and tune in to see if we are indeed aligned. And that's what happened in this particular situation I was in, where there was this one piece that neither of us were willing to compromise on. and we worked through it multiple times, and it just kept coming back, and we both got to see the mirror in the other person and see where our core values were not a match. And so then we were able to get to a place where we returned to friendship and releasing the romantic part of our relationship, which of course was painful. We love each other so much and love to be able to like have that fantasy life where everything is just so perfect and beautiful. But became very clear that we just were not ready to build something together. And so we were able to find our way through it with some conversations and some breath and spaciousness and patience. And I'm so grateful because now we can still be in each other's lives as allies, and we can come back to the fond memories of each other and not the resentments and frustrations and why couldn't he be more like that, and or these negative thoughts about each other.
That's good. I think you touched on this idea of radars or check-ins, and there's something you mentioned that sounds simple but is so not easy, which is letting someone know if things aren't okay, or bringing up something that could be a problem. I mean, that I think that is one of the big pieces of, can you get to a place of harmonious disconnection and finality, is if along the way you are having the hard conversations, if you are being transparent along the way. I think I've had a tendency in the past to seek harmony, and as opposed to truth. So there might be a deep down concern that I know that if I bring this up, this is going to have some short-term tension, if not long-term tension. So, it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal. And then maybe it comes up when I get angry and get pushed to my limit and I'm tired, and then the thing comes up, But if it can be a topic discussed in calm times with a, radar or whatever, then it's so difficult, for me at least, I think for a lot of people, to bring to light something that is not what you want to hear. And it was something I learned in poly world, that is the best advice for any relationship is get comfortable saying things that the other person doesn't want to hear. And that's in relationship, in business, in anything, and because if you can trust that the other person will have a momentary flare up of emotion and get to the other side of it, you will build trust. You will trust the other person is able to hear the thing, and that you will able to trust each other's honesty. You can trust each other's yeses and nos. But you have to risk that momentary, that triggering feeling of, this isn't what I want. This is scary. This is triggering some old feeling of abandonment or whatever. And I've in the past been guilty of I don't want to deal with that. So I think it's fine. And then what the big problem is, then when you eventually get to the breaking point, not only are you having the grief of ending a relationship, there's a feeling of dishonesty and betrayal that's added to there, because wait, how long have you been thinking this? How long have you been what? And then the feeling of how long did you not even ever love me at all? Those are things that are really painful, and those happen when you have this thread of, it's not lying, but it's not like intentional transparency that is really difficult but so important.
Unspoken. Yeah, absolutely. So beautifully said. I'd love to mention a book actually that really helped me a lot. It's called Radical Honesty. And that is a really powerful resource to be able to learn how to communicate, because it comes back to responsibility. What you're speaking to is being able to take responsibility for our feelings, our needs, and being able to know how to communicate them in a way that our partner or our friend, even, people in our lives, can receive it. Learning how to use nonviolent communication, for example. We're not pointing our fingers, you never do such and such. That's not a way to be able to actually share our truth. That is projections and blame. And, so learning, again, coming back to learning, how do we communicate with the most just centered responsibility, to be able to communicate in a way that can clear and can eradicate some of the tension and the density that can get built up. My previous partner and I, he always would say grains of sand. It's like grains of sand, right? If those grains of sand don't get addressed, then it just starts to build up, and then eventually the scale gets tipped. And it is just, or like there's the other analogy, that that pile of sand, just you just feel buried underneath it, right? Because we were in relationship for many years and it took us a long time to get to counseling. And by the time we got to the counseling, there was just so much to unpack, so many layers of unspoken things, and it was very difficult. So the radars, the check-ins, the tools, I think are such a valuable resource to be able to, yep, keep coming back to harmonizing the relationship,
Mhm.
whether
Yeah,
that's or not. Mhm.
yeah. And what you're and what you're speaking to, Bessie, is something I wanted to mention. That there's all the people I know, you guys may have heard this as well, but all the couples I've known who let's say didn't make it as a couple, and who tried couples counseling, almost all of them were like, if they could do one thing differently, they would have started counseling earlier.
100%. Oh yeah.
Because, and the best time, it also goes to what you're speaking to, Halsey, as far as like having these conversations, the best time to have these conversations, the best time to go seek couples, coaching or couples therapy is when everything's awesome. When there's no like emotion, like it's time to have the radar. And that's something that anybody can look up, like just look up radar multi-amory and you'll find like the framework for having these conversations. Having these conversations when there's no emotion, let's say, tied to it, when things are great, that's the perfect time to have them, because then you can just like talk about it. And there's no like, yeah, everything's awesome. One thing I would like to see a little bit more of in our relationship is this. And the other person's going to be in a much better place to receive that. They might have a moment like, oh, well, how long have you been holding on to this? I'm not holding on to it at all. It's just come up for me recently. Thought I'd bring it up to you because everything's awesome. And I want to just kind of address this thing now because of X, Y, and Z. And so having these conversations before these topics get loaded with any sort of resentment or feelings, God forbid we should have feelings in these conversations. But yeah, do that early. And another thing to do also when you're, and this is a super analytical, maybe over analytical, but I find there's some value to it, to kind of assess our relationship is, okay, so what if I'm feeling uncertain about a relationship, which is going to happen, certainly, but I feel like we can be we can fairly assess our relationship, and not looking for perfection, not expecting perfection from our partners, but there comes a time where we really need to like analyze our relationship with a critical eye and be like, okay, what's going on in this relationship? How happy am I in this relationship? How happy should I be in this relationship? And something that I've applied, that other people have found some value in as well, is, okay, what percentage of this relationship am I stoked about? Like how often am I stoked to be about this relationship? So what, as far as percentage of time goes, okay, there's no relationship that's going to be 100% awesome. I have zero negative feelings about it. That relationship does not exist. So scrap that. But what about a 90% of the time, 10% of the time, I'm like, possible, still kind of a high bar. So I'm like, okay, so if I'm only like 10% of the time, I can live with that. Anybody should be able to live with that. 80-20, that's pretty good. I can roll with that, because again, it's like no one's expecting for perfection. I'm sure I'm a jerk 20% of the time. The person can do with that. My bottom bar is like 70-30. So I got to feel pretty good about this relationship 70% of the time. 30% of the time is like, okay, there's just life happens, so on and so forth. 60-40, okay, what are we doing here? Because if I'm only feeling good about this relationship just better than half the time, that's a problem. We got to work some stuff out. So we got to talk. 60-40, frankly, is not good enough for me. So, and there's some people that are like, okay, that's fine. But 60-40 is like, okay, there's a lot of tolerance going on here. There's a lot of like, I'm just going to let that slide. It's like these grains of sand coming in. Like 40% of the time, I'm collecting these grains of sand, these pennies in my pocket. That's going to add up for a while. So that's, so sitting back, analyzing our relationships, being like, okay, so not expecting perfection, but how much good stuff, what's the minimum amount of good stuff I need in a relationship to feel good about continuing this relationship? And people's percentage might be different, but I think it's good to have this assessment when you're feeling good about things. And then, as far as deciding, okay, we need to talk, we need to get some stuff addressed, and we need to critically be like, okay, is this relationship going to give me what I want? Am I going to be able to give this person what they want the majority of the time?
So powerful. Yes. Well, that's really powerful. And I have something coming up around it, because something I
Sure.
personally experienced and witnessed in other people is that um, it can get to 50-50 or less, like 40-60, and
Yeah.
then a feeling of not knowing how to shift. So how do we transition? I was just talking with a friend who's been married for many, many years, and they recently got divorced. And it was probably about 5 years that they were in that like 50-50 or less of happiness. And I see a lot of people that go through that get stuck in that kind of place where it's like, how do I actually transition out of this relationship? So I'd love to hear from either of you, just how do you make that shift? How do you actually move from that deep relationship into friends when there is just so many layers of complexity?
I'm totally picturing someone's partner picking up a spreadsheet and being like, what is this about 65% here? Like, yeah, I got to talk to you about this. Yeah.
The pie chart?
Yeah. About that.
I know some couples that are very like, into spreadsheets that probably would do really well using like a pie chart and everything about their relationship, but a lot of people probably wouldn't. So like, what's the reality of being able to have those hard conversations? Where's that moment where you like rip the Band-Aid off? I mean, I know I've had a few, but it's like, yeah, any wisdom either of you got on that?
I mean, I
Yeah.
found
It's go ahead, Elsa.
that I've found that I've had difficulty finding mutual agreements that this is the right time. And it often takes one person to say enough. I had a moment where I had like I was at Burning Man one time, and I had almost like a voice tell me, say, you're out of integrity. You got to make things right. And where I knew that my partner would stay with me indefinitely, even though I wasn't what they wanted. They wanted me to commit to them, and I wasn't willing. But I didn't want something else, so I was just willing to just keep going. And I just had this massive hit, like, you're out of integrity, make it right. And so as soon as I got onto the road and had cell phone service, I said, look, we have to talk. But I don't know. I mean, like, I've also had in therapy sessions, having a therapist say, are you got to be a fuck yes to this? And as I stewed on that, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely not a fuck yes to this. And then that was like the click. Okay, I know that this has to happen. And it had to be, when we were discussing together, we couldn't come to that agreement together, but it had to be like, I had to have the clarity myself, and then just make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is something inherently unfair about relationships, because it takes two people to decide that we're going to get together and we're going to be in a relationship. It takes one person to decide that this relationship is over, and it is over. So that's something that we, if we find ourselves on the receiving end of that or the delivering end of that, understanding, like, if we're looking to, like, okay, this isn't working for me, and I just feel it's best to transition out of this. Understanding that there is just something inherently like about that to be on the receiving end of that, I think that allows us to move into that level of conversation with a little bit of grace, like you're mentioning, Betsy, and just compassion, and being like, accepting how this person is, while also realizing, like, okay, you're fine. There's actually nothing wrong with you. This connection is no longer working for me. I no longer like what's the direction that we're going in. I feel like we are going to, we are better. We are going to be better served. It's trying, finding a way to maybe not go all the way into it's not you, it's me, but there's some validity to that. Being like, no, this is not working for me, and the other person doesn't have to like it. But as long as we just kind of hold ourselves with grace and compassion for delivering that, and also if we find our place in, like, we're receiving that, because I think we've all been on the receiving end of that, and it sucks and it hurts. and be like, okay, but having the tools and the process in our own like life's journey to be like, all right, I know what I'm bringing to the table. And if this is not working for you, yes, I'm going to feel sad and I will grieve and I'm going to have some feelings about that. But I'm feeling pretty secure with who I am in this world. And if who I am does not work for you, by all means, go, be happy. This is a big world. Go find what you're looking for. That has my full support. And something that has helped me in the process with that is if I remember these numbers correctly, okay, if only 1% of the people on this planet find you attractive or would enjoy being in a relationship with you, 1%, we're talking about 8 million people. There are 8 million people on this planet who, if that's 1% of the planet, would find you attractive, would want to be, I'd be interested in being in a relationship with this person. So if we find ourselves like this person's leaving us, like, oh, what's happening? It's like, dude, there's 8 million. That's the minimum number of people. I mean, we're all good looking people here. I think that number for us is probably a little bit higher. So let's say 5% of the people on this planet find me attractive. That's 40 million people. If you want to leave me and what's going on here, I love you. I got 40 million people out here who dying to meet me. So
the queue is open, people.
The queue is open, people. Exactly. So yeah. So just apply some logical numbers to it. It's like this is a big planet.
That takes a lot of self-love. It takes a lot of trust as well, that there is something that is more aligned. I think that that's a key, what you're speaking to, and also what I have felt deeply in the process of the shifting transitions in relationship is trust. Trust the much bigger unfolding of our life journey, to be able to rip that Band-Aid off and trust that I'm going to heal. And I trust that this person is on their own journey and on their own path. I trust that I'm on my own path, and being in that, the place of breath and spaciousness and grieving as well. I think grieving is an important part of it. When we let go of a big part of our life, whether that's a long-term relationship or even a short-term, and give ourselves the space to cry and to be sad and to be upset about it. It is like, it's a really valuable part of the process. I know personally, I had a relationship where we were uncoupling. It was my choice, but he had been feeling it too. So we came to that realization together. And we actually took 24 hours or so. We turned our phones off and we just got together and we just cried and we held each other and we processed. We got to share some things that were really difficult. We just shared all the beautiful things. We actually ended up, one of the things that was like a salve for us was we compiled all of our photos and videos from our time together as sort of a completion. It was like an honoring of our time together, and that was so healing. It was so nourishing. And then it also became something that we got to share with our community. We posted it and we let people know, like, hey, we are transitioning, and please hold us and love us and know that we're doing this in a way that feels right for both of us. And it was really interesting, actually, the feedback that we got, because there was quite a few people that reached out that were like, they were sad. They were more sad than we were, because they saw this, picture perfect relationship, but they didn't really understand the depth of what we were processing through. We had our own inner workings of our karma and our alignment, that just we needed to work through. And so, yeah, it was a really beautiful way to kind of ceremonialize, the unwinding. And I like to consider also, oftentimes people get married and have a ceremony around it and create these vows and, commit to each other. And then when someone gets a divorce, there's no ceremonies usually. Maybe some people have like little uncoupling ceremonies. Can you imagine how powerful that would be to come back together in a sacred and reverent way and make new vows to each other? Like, I vow to honor and respect you as my friend. I vow to take the lessons of our relationship and implement them into my life with a new partner, right? There's so many beautiful things that can come from the completion cycles, honoring the completions, but we're not taught how to do that, you know?
Yeah, that would be a powerful, that's like, you know, like purple, like universal crown level, like processing, like, okay, like a divorce party or an uncoupling gathering, like how we get our community of friends together to witness us as we transition out of romantic relationship into friendship, back into the community, to be witnessed by that and to be celebrated. Like you guys had an awesome run, fantastic, let's whoop it up, let's have a great night, great day together. And yeah, just the exact like flip of a marriage or hand fasting ceremony or whatever. That's like next level. And
totally. Yeah,
sure.
I thought about that'd be a great business idea. Officiants for wedding, but also officiants for divorce. Ceremonialize the process.
There you go.
It might get a little messy, but shadow.
Yeah, true.
It's an interesting.
Halcyon, have you? I was going to ask you, and you feel free to dismiss this and say what you were going to what you were about to say. But have you ever, or do you see value in in your process with relationship? Have you ever been like witnessed by community? Have you ever done the conscious uncoupling post?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to speak to, because I mean, so much of my life I share publicly, and often that after many deep conversations with my partner is the agreement, like, are you comfortable with this being something that I share with the world? At some level, I'm either going to share, I have a partner with an initial and not put their picture online, or I'm going to truly invite them into what I'm speaking in the world, because I'm sharing my journey as part of my teaching and that's what I do. And so it feels out of integrity to share a love story and then just say it's over. That person's not a part of the story anymore. It's like, well, whoa. Now, to be fair, usually some time passes, a little bit of sharing, so that the ending can be told in the most beautiful way possible. I don't want to. There is always some pain involved with a uncoupling, for my experience, and so that is not necessarily, that is kind of sugar coated, still explained, like, hey, we've gotten to a place where we're unable to support each other in the ways that we want to, and trying to celebrate, these are the things that these are the good times that we're always going to remember. These are the things we learn from each other. This is the ways that we hope to support each other in the future. And I found that to be an exceptionally helpful way to reframe this just overwhelming emotional, like, grief experience and find some gratitude in it. And it's usually something that we will write each our own, and then have the other person read it over and say, are you comfortable with this? Are you comfortable with this? And with some pictures to allow the people who have celebrated our love story to witness the conclusion of this chapter. Because I mean, I can look back at every single one of my relationships. None of my relationships were failures. None of them didn't work out. They have all been incredible parts of this journey that I'm at now. My current partner is like, I'm so grateful for your past. I'm so grateful for your past. It's like, yeah, because it took all of that to get here. And so, and I think the public uncoupling story is part of that, like, forced processing, and go, wait, there's so much good in this. There's so much good in this. Let's wrap this up in a bow so that we can start the next chapter.
Totally. Yep. I wholeheartedly agree. And I feel like that's also something really beautiful we can give to the community, especially because, on social media, there tends to be this sort of like, oh, let's just only share what's beautiful, and like, oh, love, and oh, there's like hundreds and hundreds of likes on marriage and proposals. But then there's not always as much sharing around the shadow aspects or the like uncoupling. And then there's this sort of feeling of like, story, like, I was like, oh, are they still together? I don't know, that's kind of awkward. How do I, it's an interesting kind of thing. And so I know personally I've gone through that too, where I've had multiple partners where we took that time, we had our own processing behind the scenes, and then came to a place of deciding that we wanted to share with our community that we were in transition, and we did it from that place of kindness and authenticity around that. Yes, it was hard, but we are choosing to focus on the good things and the beautiful memories that we shared and the lessons. And it was really powerful because that also, for me, helped me to not be in the story so much when I would see people in person. When I share publicly, then my community can hold me. And then when they see me, they're not like, so what's been happening for you? How's your heart? Are you okay? Like, you guys broke up or whatever, and all the stories. It's like, instead, people come to me and go, wow, thank you for sharing your post. That was really helpful for me to understand what you're going through. It's very beautiful. And it was such a different feeling than like pity.
Mm.
you know and it also, like, again, like the video I had shared, it's like, salve for the relationship. It's a place to process and to keep coming back to the joyful things that we got to experience and celebrate.
And
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
classy
That's
way
there's
to
there.
it's a classy way to tell the world you're back on the market.
Yeah, totally.
Indeed,
Q is
indeed.
open. Q is open
Kids
again.
helping people, yeah. So,
Exactly.
yeah, there's definitely a huge value in being witnessed by your friends and community, because almost look at life sometimes as like a group therapy session. It's like doing this alone, doing so many things alone is so much harder than doing them together, or doing them, being witnessed while you're doing something. And even, it doesn't have to be, even if we feel we're alone, we are indeed together in all this. So it's important to, you've got resources. We have resources. We have friends who actually care about us. So, bring some reinforcements in, bring some needed perspective. We all have people we love and respect. Bring these people in to be like, yeah, it's like, yeah, you're doing this awesome, or I see you, or maybe you can do something a little different. Don't do these things alone. So this reminds me, and I'm not sure how much time we have left, but this reminds me of, a saying that, if the truth would destroy a thing, then that thing should be destroyed. So, and
Mm.
and there's a lot of, and I want to also acknowledge the other side of this. We've been talking about conscious, uncoupling, which is like the ideal way to transition in a relationship. A lot of times, like let's say we would like to get to that point, but our relationship is such shambles that for us to get to a point where we can do this like highly enlightened uncoupling is just not feasible. It's just not working. So I think it's important to recognize, if we find ourselves in that situation, use the, apply the Hippocratic Oath in this case. Okay, from this point, do no harm, or do no more harm. If it just needs to be over, then it just needs to be over. And we can just, like, okay, for the sake of everybody involved, we just got to call it. If you find yourself in that position, don't feel like we need to get to this place of a conscious unwinding and such. This relationship needs to be over. End it. Rip the Band-Aid off. Make the hard transition. And when we wake up to that, to the reality that this is, wow, what am I doing here, kind of reminds me of a couple that she was going into her first ayahuasca session, that when I was helping to organize these things, and her boyfriend actually called me and was like, can you not have her be in this? Can you just tell her it's full? And I'm like, why? And she's like, because I'm afraid if she goes into this, she's going to break up with me afterwards. And I was like, oh, I am wholly unqualified to have this conversation. I'm sorry. I wish you guys all the best, but she's in it, and whatever comes out of that, comes out of that. And so we had the session, and I didn't get a chance to check in with her right away, but I did see her the following weekend at an event. I'm like, hey, so how was last weekend for you? How'd it go? And she was like, well, you didn't tell me about the whole needing to change every aspect of my life thing. I'm like, oh yeah, that's that ayahuasca kind of does that. She's like, yeah, I broke up with my boyfriend. I'm moving out of his house. I'm quitting my job, and I'm doing all this stuff. And it's complete life reset, which was awesome, because she ended up creating her own business, finding the love of her life, marriage, kids, this, that, and the other thing. But she had to completely reset her thing. And she said she did not have the awareness or even the ability to do that until after going through taking the medicine, coming out of me like, oh, wow, none of this is working. And I've been so afraid to do something about it. I'm no longer afraid. Rip the Band-Aid off, just pull the car over, get out, start walking, whatever analogy you want to use. But yeah, it's important to, once you have the awareness, like this is not working, you can either try to make it work, or you could just be like, all right, call it. This is it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I want to highlight just the essence of that is coming back into yourself, right? Whether that is doing a ceremony of ayahuasca or taking a few days or a retreat or just taking some space can oftentimes bring a lot of clarity around how to move forward and how to shift. Like I just need to have a retreat and check in with myself, and then to be able to come to that place of kindness within, and hopefully anyways to be able to have those conversations from that more centered place when you're not so swept up in each other's energy. So yeah, I think that there's, of course, I love these conversations because there's always more and more and more and more. We could keep sparking and staying in this conversation, and maybe we will for a future episode. But I think it probably is good to start to find our way into some closing sparks on this topic.
Sure, I'll jump in with a spark that's related to some of the things you guys have just been talking about, which is that I think that it's so. The goal is always a harmonious, peaceful, beautiful uncoupling. But before that, or the priority above that is integrity and honesty. I've seen people stay together because they don't want to hurt the partner, and they're trying to avoid causing pain and the suffering that's going to happen with the breakup or the splitting. And so this temporary maintaining the peace is built on lies. It's built on this deceit. And I think the deeper crime against your partner is postponing this thing and having them live in a lie. They think things are okay, and that is a way worse thing than the temporary suffering. And so I think that part of it's ideally you leave as co-heroes of an epic love story, but it's also sometimes you have to be the villain in someone else's temporary story. And that's how growth happens. Sometimes it's got to be a rough chapter. Sometimes you are the person that somebody is angry at. And often when they go through their journey, they can look back and say, I needed that. I'm so grateful that you did that. And I think that we can all look at our lives and look at times in the past when we, during an ending of a relationship, we're like, no, I can't live without you. And then 4 years later, you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad they're not in my life anymore. And the more that happens, the more you can go, this is just the way life is. And it takes those hard conversations with your partner and with yourself and going, I need to get right. I need to be in integrity for both of our sakes so we can reach our potentials. And good luck.
Yes. Woo! Bringing some sparks. I'm about to start some fires there, Halcyon. So good.
Yeah. There's a definition of hell which describes it as being forced to live forever with everything you ever wanted, and getting everything you ever wanted. And it's important to speaking of what Halcyon's talking about, being able to, we go through this life in this world with we have a level of sovereignty, even if we don't acknowledge it. Like I'm in this world, I'm with this partner, and so on and so forth. It's like we come into this world alone, we leave this world alone, and there's a large aspect of our journey, which is, most of it is frankly about us, and being cool with that, and knowing, kind of really acknowledging that we are not, as much as I love my partner, as much as we are building a life together, there's a lot of my world that is all about me. And being able to look myself in the mirror in a lot of different realms and areas, particularly in this case about relationship, I haven't always been able to do that. And getting to a point where, like, okay, if we're going to unwind this relationship, I have to feel good about how I'm doing this. And also, if I'm on the receiving end of that, I have to feel good about how I show up for this person who is leaving me. No matter what end we're approaching this uncoupling from, we have to be able to like look ourselves in the mirror and feel good about who we are, feel good about how we handle things. I handled this to the best of my ability. There's really, frankly, not many better feelings than that, to be able to know in our heart of hearts, like, okay, that integrity is defined as like what we do when nobody's looking, and knowing like, okay, I handle this to the best of my ability. Always do your best, one of the 4 ingredients, and that best is going to vary from day to day. But if we can look at ourselves and be like, I handled this uncoupling, this unwinding to the best of my ability, that is something that's that we can take with us moving forward, and that is going to serve us well, knowing that we did our best in this, and we received this in our best way. So yeah, just to kind of double up on what Halcyon's saying, that integrity piece is huge. So doing our best is going to serve us well.
Well said. Yes. Closing sparks. I'll crystallize it. Kindness, integrity, honesty, responsibility, receiving wisdom from other people that have gone through processes, receiving support from community, from family, from friends that hold us in the highest and best way. Asking for guidance when lost and not sure how to move through, taking space. These are all things I think are really, really valuable things to be able to implement into the process of navigating when a relationship is ready for a shift. And I think the last piece too is, you spoke to this right at the beginning, Janus, is around impermanence. Everything is impermanence. This too will pass, whether it's through physical death or transition and just a relationship. This is a part of our existence, is this too will pass.
And lastly, if we feel like our story doesn't have a happy ending, it's because your story's not over yet. So just allow things, step back and know that your life is this ongoing journey, that this relationship is not your life. This is a chapter of your life. And if it feels like it's like you're moving into a different aspect of the story, the saga of your life, yeah, there's some grace. You can let turn the page with some grace.
Absolutely. Yep. And our hearts are meant to feel all the feels, not just joy and love, but also sorrow and grief. So to honor all the feels of the heart. Right. Wow. Thank you guys so much. So, thank you guys for listening out there. Always open to receive your comments, messages, feedback, thoughts, conversations. This is a very deep and complex conversation. So please do send us a message. And also, if anyone out there would like to work with us or receive our offerings in the world, love to share with you how you can do that. So I'll start. I am the founder of the Power Affirmation Project, which is a journal that helps with reprogramming limiting beliefs and getting into a deeper and more loving relationship with yourself. And I offer audio affirmations, also one-on-one coaching virtually and in person. I also do mind, body, spirit healing sessions with massage therapy, energy work, aerial somatics, and retreats. So if you want to find me, you can check out poweraffirmation.com. You can also find me on the socials. And then also in the show notes, there's a free gift for an affirmation that you can download.
Beautiful. My place of digital access is johnstin.com, JOHNSTYN, and it has access to the Hug Nation YouTube channel, which has been 2,000 or so videos. So if you want to see what I've been like in past relationships, you could probably witness that if you search back far enough in the archives. But there's also links to my Medium, which has a bunch of blogs about also relationships and everything else I've been going through, and daily gratitude circles that are happening in Zoom. So I would love to connect.
Cool. I am available on the internets at NuWorldNutritionals.com. That's spelled NuWorldNutritionals.com. And this is the name of my nutritional supplement company, which has a main product called My Chromosome Plus, which is good for mushroom-based. It's a mushroom-based product that allows people to help alleviate symptoms of anxiety, depression, ADHD, PTSD. It's also helping with forms of dementia, MS, Parkinson's, anything like neurological. It's proven to be fantastic. And even for people who are just looking to focus, improve their memory and retention, or just looking to honestly just feel good, have a have a good day. And my partner calls it a spa day for your brain. It's a great product for that. So you can find that online at nutritionals.com, and you can use the code SPARKED for 10% off of all of our products.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Beautiful, guys. All right. So let's close it up with an affirmation based on this conversation. The word that's coming to my mind and heart is harmony. And so I'd love to share an affirmation on harmony. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes, maybe take a nice deep breath, and allow this affirmation to guide you. I embody harmony in all of my relationships. I embody harmony in all of my relationships. I allow harmony to guide my conversations. I allow harmony to guide my conversations. I am harmonious in all my relations. I am harmonious in all my relations. I am harmonious in all my relations. Harmony guides my way. Harmony guides my way. I embrace change. I embrace change with grace. I embrace change with grace. And so it is. Thank you guys for listening. Stay sparked.
Stay sparked, people.